What's good, gamers? Aquilon here, and of course, welcome back to each and every one of you. If you haven't already watched my last video, I highly suggest you do that now, because that video is sort of the intro to this video. There's a lot of things there that you need to know before you watch this one, otherwise you're going to be confused, and then don't come at me being like, oh, Aquilon, I don't understand what the hell, No, I've made that video. You need to check that out. What if I told you that the World of Warcraft, the world of Azeroth, as we know it, is an incomplete history, either accidentally or on purpose? But the Titans did not tell us the full story of what transpired on Azeroth. Now let's quickly examine what the Titans told us about Azeroth. They arrive on Azeroth and they find these old gods. These old gods have spread themselves all across the land. This, of course, was back in the day when Kalimdor, the land of eternal stars, was one big continent before the Great Sundering, and then the other Great Sundering took place. Well, it was first the Sundering, and then it was the Great Sundering, the second one, and that's when everything went to shit. But that's before that. We're not there yet, chat. We're not even going there in this video, not really. But is that the truth? Is that actually what happened? Well, let me start with some of the things that confuses me about the Titans' earliest recounts of Azeroth. They arrive and the old gods are pretty much constantly at war with one another. This is a fact that has been corroborated by Xal'atath in the Whispers of Xal'atath, where she speaks about the ancient wars that took place between the old gods. We also know that the old gods recruited within their ranks the elemental lords, and that the elemental lords are also fighting tooth and nail on the side of their given lords as part of this massive war. And the question becomes, why? If you are all from the Void Lords. Now, there's no evidence in WoW to suggest that all of the old gods are from a singular Void Lord. So it's possible that they are from different Void Lords. And given how the Void Lords think about stuff, the fact that they have thousands of truths and they believe all of them to be true, it's entirely plausible that each different Void Lord would have a very different goal for how things work, and that each of these old gods come from a different Void Lord and share that Void Lord's goal, and therefore that's why they're fighting. But let's go back to the Chronicles for a second. And I discussed this in a lot more detail in the previous video. But the Titans say that there were giant clashes between the light and the void that took place in the earliest days of creation. But I've already explained in the previous video how that doesn't make a lot of sense. Because the Ocean of Light feels like it's far more Zeroth Ordus. If you look at Zeroth mode, I go back to that video if you don't understand what I'm saying right now. But what if the Titans did tell us about the war without explicitly telling us about the war? I've left you in suspense long enough. I believe that either the old gods were sent to Azeroth for a very specific purpose, or the light was sent to Azeroth for a very specific purpose. But I do not believe the Titans' accounts that the old gods just happened to be on Azeroth by accident. Remember, what did the Titans claim? The Titans said that the Void Lords flung their essence into the great beyond, and these essences fell on different planets. Some of those planets barren with no world soul inside of it. Other planets with world souls, and the Void Lords or the old gods on those planets started to grow massive as they were just feeding off of the energy of these Titans. And obviously trying to corrupt these Titans. I have a different theory. And our theory really starts in Hallowfall. Hallowfall is the new zone in the War Within. If you look at Hallowfall, there's a crystal in Hallowfall. The crystal is the source of light for Hallowfall. And literally, it's its sun. But it goes light and dark, light and dark, light and dark, light and dark, which is very weird. Why is that crystal going light and dark, light and dark, light and dark?
Yeah, you know what it is.
Light and dark, light and dark, light and dark, light and dark. Well, we're told about the Arathians that escaped from a land unknown, a kingdom unknown. And they came to Hallowfall. And they settled in Hallowfall. And there they serve the light. But what's the other element of Hallowfall? The Nerubians. And the Nerubians serve the void. What if the crystal didn't always switch light, void, light, void, light, void? What if the crystal was always a light crystal? What if Xal'atath being in Hallowfall is no coincidence? Xal'atath knows who the greatest enemy of the void is. The light. She speaks about the light far more in her whispers than any other entity in its aggregate. The light takes up a massive portion of the void whispers, of what the void is all about. And we know that the light hates the void. Can't stand the void. It's a constant war. Even the Titans write about this ancient conflict between the light and the void. So here's my posit, and this could really happen vice versa. It could happen in any order. I'm just choosing this order because I have to make a choice, and otherwise it's going to be very confusing. But I'm going to argue that the void arrived on Azeroth first. The old gods, and very specifically, the old gods wanted Azeroth. The idea that, or the void lords wanted Azeroth. The idea that the void lords just sent stuff into space and, you know, come what may, YOLO. No, I don't believe that's what they did. I think they were very specifically targeting Azeroth, but they knew that they can't just send 3 or 4 old gods directly to Azeroth. The problem with that is it would leave those old gods exposed. So they sent out thousands to all planets within the Great Beyond. You see, the idea here is spread the Titans thin. Make the Titans so busy trying to take care of all these void incursions that you give the old gods on Azeroth enough time to bloom, to grow, to become powerful. But the light isn't stupid. The light knew exactly what the void lords were up to. And so they sent their own force, their own incursion, the crystal. Now, we've seen crystals very similar to that one in the past. They look very similar to summoning crystals, the kind of ones the light uses to summon their forces through, to get ready for war. What if that is exactly what that crystal is? After the old gods had settled on Azeroth and the light had finally figured out what the void lords were up to, they sent their own force. They sent this crystal, and this crystal slammed into Azeroth with such force that it actually buried itself under the ocean. I believe if you go to that area where that land sits, and you go down into the ocean, if it's possible, you would actually see portions of that crystal sticking out. But it slammed straight through into Hallowfall, and that's where its edge exists now. This explains why the Arathians, remember the Arathians are ancient paladins. They have served the light for a very long time. That explains why the Arathians are there. You see, the light knows that the void knows about this crystal. The light needed a force to keep this crystal safe for the final battle, the final deciding battle, when the light sends their entire army of light to Azeroth in order to extinguish all of the void's forces. We just saw Iridikron doing the exact same thing for the void, busy preparing for the fullness of the void forces to arrive on Azeroth. And now we see the herald of the void, Xal'atath herself, rebuilding the Black Empire. Only this time doing it much more intelligently. Really utilizing her strength of knowing how mortals act, knowing what mortals do, and trying to circumvent our strengths in that way. Now, where does all of this come from? Well, a lot of it has its origins in the whispers of the old gods. Some of the whispers just it speaks of these ancient wars that the void fight amongst one another, and I've never been able to understand why the void fights these ancient wars. Like, what's the purpose of these ancient wars? Well, if you're trying to make yourself stronger, war is a pretty good way of doing it. War games, if you will. By fighting each other, they are continuously honing their skills. They are continuously making themselves stronger. Their biggest weakness, however, was the Titans. They had not enough time to defeat the Titans, or become strong enough to defeat the Titans. The Titans locked them up, and this really put a damper on everything. But then there's one thing that I think, to me at least, goes further than anything. And it's one specific whisper that has bothered me for like 6 years now. Ever since the whispers came out. From Xal'atath. When you, as a priest, run into Orgrimmar, Xal'atath has a whisper where she says, effectively, they will pay for what was done to me. They will pay for what was done to me years so long ago. And I have never been able to place this. I have gone through the history of Orgrimmar. I've tried to look for evidence of what was there before Orgrimmar existed there. And the truth is, I find nothing. There's no evidence that anything in that location ever happened to Xal'atath. And then you combine that with one other whisper, where Xal'atath speaks about the light, and she says, the light see us as horrors. They see us as monsters to be eradicated. But we do not share that view. To us, they are merely brothers and sisters who have lost their way. They will return to the masters in time. Now, if we take the location of where Orgrimmar sits, we take the location of Hallowfall. What if Xal'atath was once a servant of the light? And the light, being not very nice, decided that she would be best served as a blade. So they bound her soul to Xal'atath. A blade that was built by the Black Empire, made by the old gods themselves, forged in their furnaces. A blade that was meant to absorb the power of the light, the souls of that which it kills. The light sought to bind her to the blade in order to, and this is all just literally pulled out of my bumhole, but in order to cleanse the blade. The problem was that it didn't cleanse the blade. You see, the light underestimated the incredible corrupting properties of void. Just how powerful the void can actually be. You see, that theory, while not perfect, I give you, I think perfectly explains those two whispers. And I have found no evidence in the game that disproves anything that I just told you. In fact, I think there's far more that makes this plausible, because it explains the crystal, the location of the crystal. It explains the Arathians and why they're there. It explains why Xal'atath has now gone into Hallowfall to the Nerubians, and why the crystal is now suddenly pulsing void to light. You see, Xal'atath is trying to corrupt the crystal to bar the light's way. The Arathians is trying to keep the crystal pure, because their ancient charge is to keep the gateway open. Why else would the light need this giant army? Why else is the light traversing the twisting nether, going to different planets, subjugating entire civilizations to build this massive army. For what? They have basically already won, and yet the light appears to be getting ready for the war of the century. What if this is that war? A war that started tens of thousands of years ago, that was interrupted by the Titans. But now the light is ready. And Xalatath realizes that they need to be ready. And we, the mortals of Azeroth, well, ladies and gentlemen, we are stuck slap bang in the middle. That's why the next expansion after the War Within is called Midnight. Because it's going to be hell on earth. And then, of course, we have The Lost Titan, which has its own speculation theories that I'm going to go into. Anyways, I'm done. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit the like button if you did. Subscribe over on Patreon. $1 a month keeps the channel free from sponsorships that want to sell you stuff that you do not need. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, be kind to each other, be good to each other. And I will see all of you in the next one. Peace.
Yeah, you know what it is.
Light and dark, light and dark, light and dark, light and dark.